Okay, here we are with our completed movie file or video on the timeline, but what we need to do now is export it so you can upload it to YouTube and show it to the world. The last thing we want to check before we go up to the file export stage, which is up here, is to make sure that we are actually exporting our entire file that's sitting on the timeline. Now, if this orange marker isn't there, if it's, say, out here, or maybe it's back here, much shorter, what you need to do is just take your pointer and pick that orange marker up and drag it to exactly where you want it to be. And so that marks the out of your video story. Now, there's a corresponding marker on the other side called the in. If that in was set too far in, you would want to make sure it drags it back to 0. 0 is the point where the movie file should begin playing once you export it. So now I've got my in and the out points set. My next step is to export this file. I'm going to do that by hitting File, and you got it, Export. And I'm going to export media. All these other things you don't need to pay attention to. These have much more complex functions that we are not worried about right now. So let's just export the media. I'll click on that. And now Premiere Pro gives us yet another dialog box at the end. Now, one of the important things is this tells us where do we want to save our video file. And that's probably the most important thing because you've got to find it. So it's going to give us this whole box, and what we want to do is see this output name. That is exactly what our file will be named and where we'll save it. So what we want to do is click it, and it's going to give us a much more standard looking Save As dialog box. And I want to save that again to the exact same folder where all my media is. And so if you recall, the C5 is where it is, and I'm going to just get right back to that folder, drop it right in there so I know the finished movie file is nestled safely next to all the raw files. Okay, so I've saved it. But before I save it, I'm actually thinking that I want to do something and not name it img7623jpeg.mov. I want to name it something more relative to what I was planning it to be. PP tutorial for Premiere Pro tutorial. Format is really important as well. We are going to always use a format that YouTube wants to accept. YouTube doesn't take every single format, nor does it take every size of video. So we need to size and format our videos. In this case, what we want to always do is export as H.264. These are called codecs. In Premiere Pro, handily allows us to preset a file size to match what we want to export to YouTube, for instance, or Vimeo, or any other variety of players, so Androids or Apple TV or iPads. As you see, there's a lot of options. Now these are presets. You can use a preset. I recommend you use a preset because it's just a lot easier than worrying about setting it up yourself. However, you can do it yourself if you want to. So in this case, we are going to set a YouTube preset to match what our files are. Now, if you already know what your video file is, use that same one. If it's 2997 1080p, use that. And in this case, we're going to use that too. So for this slideshow, use YouTube HD 1080p 2997. And another day, I'm going to tell you exactly what those numbers mean. But let's not go there right now. So I select that. Notice it pops up there, H.264. My name is there. I'm going to export audio and video. If I uncheck that box, I won't get any audio, so I definitely don't want to do that. I want to leave that there. The next and last thing that I get to do is hit export, and that means this file should show up exactly where I want it after I watch it in code. And when we come back, we should see it sitting right in our original media file folder on our computer, ready to upload to YouTube. So, see you in a few minutes.